Final day of 2020, guys. As I record this video, I've just taken the kids down to the beach to have a play. And yeah, I wasn't actually sure what we should talk about for this final day of 2020. There's some upcoming games in the Northern Hemisphere this weekend, but I figured it's the last day. What were some of the best and worst moments of the year that really stuck in my mind? My daughter yelling at me through the door and knocking on the door. It's one of them. Yeah, what? Let me do my video first, okay? She's gone. So, yeah. I'm talking about things like what was the game of the year, try of the year, player of the year, feel bad moments, feel good moments, funny or bad, good or bad interviews, rookie kick, all that kind of stuff. This is literally, it's the last day of the year, man. It's all just done from the top of my head. I've no doubt forgotten some pretty key moments, but worst thing about 2020 is obviously COVID, man. Come on, goes without saying. Goes without saying. The world has just been turned upside down by this prick of a disease. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, we are able as a planet to kind of sort that thing out ASAP. But yeah, we still did see some good stuff despite all that. So let's go with some good stuff. What did I like? I already talked about kind of what were the best games in each competition, but what's the best game overall? I'm going to say it was the All Blacks in Argentina. Game of the year. I will never forget that game. And maybe it doesn't mean as much if you're not Argentinian or Kiwi. I mean, if you're Irish, I'm sure you can feel it because that first time you beat the All Blacks is undoubtedly a big moment. Like, I've seen the All Blacks beat the Pumas multiple times. And I've always kind of in the back of my mind been thinking, man, it'd be nice if they could push us close. Well, they beat us. And that's one that I will just never forget, man. Where was I when I watched that game? So, game of the year for me. Leave me your comments on what other games were good because there was a ton. Try of the year. The first ones that come to mind, and there's several of them, but Johnny May. If you don't watch Northern Hemisphere rugby, you may not have seen enough of this guy, but man, in the Six Nations and on the resumption of play, the dude is just a freak in a good way. There's one try he scores against Ireland in the Six Nations where he's got it like in his own 22. He runs, beats a tackler. I'll put as much as I can in the highlights in the description. He like chips and chases it, regathers it, kicks it through again like soccer style and manages to score. It's just a phenomenal try. There are heaps of good tries in 2020. But in terms of international ones especially, that is literally the first one that came to my mind. And that's why it's on this piece of paper. Kick of the year. I was thinking Bouthier had a pretty good punt in the Six Nations. And that's just a punt. Like he literally just booted it like 80 meters. From his own 22 to like England's inside their 22. It was a monster kick. But for kick of the year, and it comes from Super Rugby Aotearoa, Bryn Gatland, son of coach Warren Gatland, who's coaching the Chiefs. Bryn's playing for the Highlanders. It's the last few minutes of the game. Chiefs have just gone in front, I think with a drop goal from Damien McKenzie. Bryn Gatland, son of the coach Warren Gatland. So he's playing for the other team. He's playing for the Highlanders. Warren's coaching the Chiefs. Bryn Gatland slots a drop goal at the death to beat his father's team at home. The talk next day is like he's been written out of the world. It was hilarious. It was just a hell of a moment. It's going to stick with me for a long time, I would say. That moment was a great moment. And then the aftermath of it being his son that did it to him. Rookie of the year, I'm going to put a bit of, because there's a lot, like the Ireland's got a lot of young guys coming through. England blooded a couple of young guys. Like the Georgians brought some young guys through. The Wallabies blooded heaps of young guys. But I'm going to go with kind of a stereotypical one here, and I'm going to say Caleb Clark. If you haven't seen him play, I will check a highlights video in the description. Admittedly, when he's been quiet, teams have been able to keep him a bit quieter when they kind of two-man tackle him. But he's got the potential, if he develops his game right, to do what Sonny Bill was doing, was always draw two and pass. So he may not be a huge try scorer, but he's always going to attract defenders. You watch some of the defenders he beats, and I think especially that second Bledisloe game at Eden Park. I was at that game, and he was a monster. Absolute monster. He's got bags of potential. Coach of the year, I've gone South African, and I've gone Jake White with the Bulls. We all know Jake White's a good coach. He's a bit of a love him or hate him kind of character. A lot of people don't like Jake White, but man, you can't argue with his results. He's brought in a lot of big names at the Bulls, but the Bulls, in recent times, remember they had John Mitchell as coach, and then Potagieman, and then they brought in Jake White, and he's just turned things around. They've gone from looking a wee bit of a shambles. Like, they had a really stacked team one year. I saw them in a quarterfinal here over in New Zealand and Wellington. Like, they had Pollard and, oh man, I can't remember, heaps of Springboks, and they got knocked out in the quarterfinals. They probably should have been a better team than they were. But then, man, Jake White's come and really turned them around. After they lost all those Springboks, he's managed to attract quite a few big names back, the latest being Marcel Coetzee. So, not only is he able to get the results on the pitch, but he's able to attract guys back to South Africa, which is good, because we often see things going the other way. Player of the year, man, I went with Antoine Dupont, the Frenchman. Honestly, the dude is amazing. There's a highlight of him at the weekend, was it the weekend before, for Toulouse? Just scoring a miraculous try. No rights to be getting it, but he's just consistently good, man. He's a very dangerous ball runner, good distributor, good kicking. Like, what else do you want? He just gets line breaks where he's got no rights to do it. He is involved in so many, him and Intimac are involved in so many of France's moves. I mean, it's the 19 combos to be expected, but he is just next level. I know Aaron Smith's good for the ABs, but Antoine Dupont, man, very, very good. Interviews. Eddie Jones had a hilarious one where he basically said, he was talking to the pundits here in New Zealand, and he said New Zealand's got 3 of the best academies for producing talent in the world, and that's Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga, which is pretty cutting. It's hilarious. I don't know how true it is, because Pacific Islands have supplied players to many places in the world, and being from New Zealand, I know there's a lot of Pacific Island guys born here rather than poached. It's not a rabbit hole I'm going to go down right now, but yeah, that was just a memorable interview, man. As like all the interviews are pretty much PC, and you know they speak all the same media speak. That one was kind of memorable. I'm sure there are others. On the flip side, and like stinking like just keep your mouth shut interviews. Sam Cane, I think it's after they've lost to the Pumas, so he's under a bit of pressure as All Blacks captain. He comes out with a line where he basically says, "We've got some of the best fans in the world, and then some of our fans don't know the game of rugby. They don't know what they're talking about." And he might be right, but man, the way he said it was bad. He basically told New Zealand rugby fans, "You don't know what you're talking about. Be quiet. We know the game of rugby better than you do." And he's right to a degree, but man, he can't be saying that. I know what he meant. His delivery was pretty poor. What else did I write down? Feel good moments. Having the Force back in Super Rugby AU was good. Having been cut from Super Rugby several years ago, to see the Force back in Super Rugby AU and all the signings they've made now, that's very, very pleasing. To see Georgia get a crack in the Autumn Nations Cup when they played Fiji. Fiji finally got that one game after having their games cancelled, and it was a heck of a game. You know, very, very good. Seeing North versus South here in New Zealand, that was a bit of a cracker. So there were a few kind of feel-good moments. There were some kind of still feel-bad moments as well. The Cheetahs getting shafted in South Africa. They seem to be on the outer with South African rugby. Nigel Owens retiring from internationals. It had to happen eventually, but it still sucks that he's retired from internationals. Achia Snyman, the big South African lock, big signing for Munster, gets injured like in the first 10 minutes of his first game. It was the first 5 minutes. Like, just tragic, man. Come on, you can't be doing that. Gorgadze getting injured in the Autumn Nations Cup for Georgia. He was clearly like their best player, gets injured. All that sucks. Sanzar, man, don't get me started on Sanzar. I did a rant video on those guys. Their shambles going on throughout the year before they finally decided to kind of keep the rugby championship but cut out Super Rugby in its current form. Like, yeah, that was death by 1,000 cuts, that one, man. It was painful to watch. It was like a bunch of children. So the death of Super Rugby, I guess, in its current form is another one, which was kind of a feel bad. Seeing Fiji, Wales, and Australia get drawn in the same bloody World Cup pool again. I don't know if that's a feel good or a feel bad. It's certainly a feel familiar. Anyway, I forgot to mention Team of the Year. I thought, man, Exeter Chiefs. If you don't watch Northern Hemisphere Rugby, those guys they won both the competitions they played in. They won against the best of the French and English teams, and the Pro 14 teams. So the Welsh and Irish and Scottish and Italian teams. They just dominated everybody. They won the final. Like, they didn't smash the French team they played, but yeah, they won like 2 trophies in a couple of weeks. So very, very good team. A team that a few years ago was apparently, down the divisions. They've gone through the divisions, got promoted to the Premiership, gotten to the top of the Premiership, and now to the top of Europe. Very, very good team. So, yeah. I think that's pretty much... blunders. I forgot to say the blunders. There were a couple of bad blunders, man. Rico Ioane against the Wallabies, failing to score a try. I think I can find a link to that. And Stuart Hogg failing to score against Ireland. I'm pretty sure I can find a link to that. Pretty bad moments where you just hold your head in your hands and you shake your head. But, I think that's all I wrote down, man. I was just trying to think of stuff that I thought of when I think of the year 2020 in rugby. Obviously, the COVID thing, the disruptions, it's ongoing. It's something we'll face into the start of 2021, but hopefully things are going to get better. Fingers crossed. Anyway, wherever you guys are, if you're in New Zealand here and you're able to go to the beach without having to, endanger the lives of people around you, go to the beach. If you're in places where the COVID thing is still causing problems, just, stay safe, keep washing your hands, and, take care of yourselves. But anyway, cheers for being along for the ride in 2020. As I said, it's had its ups and downs. I like to look at the bright side moments for the most part. And here's hoping that 2020 is an even better year. But yeah, do let me know other great tries. If you can find the highlights to them, chuck those links. If it'll let you. Sometimes YouTube's a bit funny with putting links in the description, or in the comments. I'm not sure if that will work. Try it. But yeah, great tries, funny interviews, big tackles. I couldn't think of what's the one tackle of the year that I remember being a great one. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, but I would like to go with kind of tackle of the year. I know Ofatunga Fasi put in some pretty big hits. So did Lockie Swinton, but he eventually got red carded for the Wallabies for doing that. I should have mentioned the death of the Sunwolves as a team was also a bit of a feel bad one. So yeah, but still, do let us know some of the good moments. Best refereeing performance. Who was the best ref of 2020? It's easy to go for worst ref, but I didn't want to be too negative. But anyway, you guys take care. As I said, I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to see what my daughter was on about earlier. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later. Happy New Year.